The words hit me like a freight train during our Sunday family dinner in suburban Chicago. I was clearing plates from our oak dining table when I heard Sarah, my daughter-in-law, whisper to her sister, "That child isn't his." My hands froze around the ceramic plates, my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it above the gentle hum of our old refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on Maple Street. I glanced toward the living room where my son Marcus sat on our worn leather couch, bouncing 3-year-old Tommy on his knee. The little boy's laughter filled our modest 2-story home, the same infectious giggle that had brought so much joy to our family since his birth. Marcus's dark skin contrasted beautifully with Tommy's lighter complexion. But I'd never questioned it. Genetics can be funny that way, I'd always told myself. My own grandmother had been much lighter than her siblings, a family mystery we'd never solved. The autumn evening light filtered through our lace curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors that Marcus had refinished himself 2 summers ago. Our home, built in 1952, had been in our family for 3 generations. Every creaky floorboard, every worn spot on the banister, every family photo lining the walls told a story of love, struggle, and perseverance. This was where I'd raised Marcus after his father died in Iraq when Marcus was just 12. This was where we'd celebrated Tommy's first steps, his first words, every precious milestone. The next morning, I couldn't shake Sarah's words. They echoed in my mind like a broken record as I stood in my small kitchen, watching the sunrise paint, the sky pink and orange above the neighbor's maple tree. Marcus had already left for his job at the Southside Community Center, where he mentored at-risk youth, his life's calling since graduating from the University of Illinois with his master's in social work. He'd left at 7 sharp, same as every weekday for the past 5 years, carrying his worn leather briefcase and the lunch I'd packed in the same Superman lunchbox he'd used in elementary school, a small tradition that made us both smile. Found myself staring at family photos lining our narrow hallway walls, searching for resemblances I'd never noticed before. There was Marcus at Tommy's age, gap-toothed and grinning at his kindergarten graduation. There was Tommy last Christmas, unwrapping the bicycle Marcus had spent weeks assembling in our basement. The more I studied the photos, the more questions arose. Tommy had Sarah's green eyes, her button nose, her delicate chin. But what about Marcus? The uncertainty gnawed at me like a persistent ache, settling deep in my chest where worry had lived during Marcus's teenage years. Our neighborhood had been changing lately. Young families moving in, renovating the old houses, bringing new energy to streets where I'd walked for 43 years. I'd taught many of these new parents when they were children themselves at Lincoln Elementary. But change also brought challenges, rising property taxes, gentrification pressures, the slow erasure of the community bonds that had sustained us through decades of struggle. When Sarah arrived to drop off Tommy for his usual Monday babysitting session, I watched her more carefully than ever before. She seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact as she hurried through our front door, her heels clicking anxiously on the polished wooden floors. Her usually perfect blonde hair was slightly disheveled, and I noticed she kept checking her phone obsessively. "Mrs. Johnson, I'll pick him up at 6, she said quickly, practically running back to her Honda Civic parked in our narrow driveway between the old oak tree and the neighbor's fence. The car door slammed with unusual force, and she drove away faster than normal, leaving me standing in the doorway with Tommy's small hand in mine and a growing sense of dread in my heart. Something was definitely wrong, and I needed answers before this secret destroyed my son's world. Hey everyone! Before we continue this emotional journey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you're already hooked by this family drama. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. That afternoon, while Tommy napped peacefully in Marcus's old bedroom, surrounded by the same Chicago Bears posters and baseball trophies from his father's youth, I made a decision that would change everything. The room still smelled faintly of the Old Spice cologne Marcus had worn in high school, and sunlight streamed through the blue curtains I'd sewn myself 20 years ago. I sat on the twin bed where I'd read countless bedtime stories to my son, now watching his son sleep in the same spot, and felt the weight of generations on my shoulders. I called my friend Janet, who worked at a private investigation firm downtown on LaSalle Street. We'd been friends since our children played Little League together in the 80s, back when the neighborhood was rougher and we mothers had to stick together to keep our kids safe. Janet had always been the practical one, the problem solver, who helped navigate life's complications with wisdom and discretion. "Janet, I need a favor, and I need complete discretion," I whispered into the phone, standing by our kitchen window overlooking the neighbor's carefully tended garden, where Mrs. Patterson grew the tomatoes she shared with the whole block each summer. "What's going on, Gloria? You sound worried sick." Janet's concerned voice came through clearly, carrying 35 years of friendship and understanding. "I think my daughter-in-law is hiding something about Tommy's paternity, and I can't let Marcus get blindsided. You know how he gets. He loves with his whole heart, no holding back. If this secret comes out wrong, it could destroy him." The words felt like poison leaving my mouth, but I had to protect my son. I'd been protecting him since he was 12 years old and had to become the man of the house too young. Janet asked careful questions, her investigator's mind already working. She'd handled cases like this before, she assured me, always with sensitivity and complete confidentiality. The process would take a few days, but she could arrange for a discreet DNA test through a lab that specialized in family situations. No one would know except us until we decided what to do with the information. Within hours, Janet had arranged everything. The next few days crawled by like molasses in January. Marcus continued his routine with heartbreaking normalcy. Work at the community center from 7 to 4, dinner with us at our old wooden table, playing with Tommy in our small backyard where the grass never grew quite right because of the big maple tree's shade. In the evenings, he'd read bedtime stories in voices that made Tommy giggle and beg for, "One more story, Daddy, please." I watched him push Tommy on the swing set he'd built himself last spring, using wood he'd carefully selected at Home Depot, and spending entire weekends with his drill and saw, determined to create something perfect for his son. His face glowed with pure fatherly love, the same expression I'd seen when he held Tommy for the first time in the hospital 3 years ago. The memory of that day, Marcus crying with joy, calling Tommy my little man, now felt like a knife in my chest. Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic as the week progressed. She started picking Tommy up earlier, making excuses about errands and appointments that seemed to multiply daily. Her usual chattiness disappeared, replaced by clipped responses and nervous glances. During our Thursday family dinner, a tradition I'd maintained since Marcus was small, she barely touched my famous pot roast, constantly checking her phone with trembling hands. The phone buzzing seemed to make her jump each time, and I noticed she'd step outside to take calls, speaking in hushed, urgent tones while pacing our front porch. When Marcus asked about work, she gave vague answers about busy cases and demanding clients that didn't ring true. Sarah had always been proud of her work at the prestigious downtown law firm, often sharing stories of interesting cases and office dynamics. "You okay, baby?" Marcus asked during dinner, placing his large, gentle hand over hers with such tenderness it made my heart ache. He'd inherited his father's hands, strong, capable, warm. Hands that had comforted me through grief, that built swing sets and changed diapers with equal care. "Just tired from work," she lied, but I caught the guilty look in her eyes, the way she couldn't meet his gaze directly. I'd seen that look before, on students' faces when they hadn't done their homework or had broken classroom rules. After 4 decades of teaching, you learn to read deception. The DNA results would arrive Monday morning. I prayed to the same God who'd carried me through my husband's death and Marcus's difficult teenage years, that the results would prove my suspicions wrong. But deep down, with the intuition that comes from loving someone unconditionally, I knew we were heading toward a devastating revelation that would test our family's strength like never before. If this story is already gripping your heart, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. This family's world is about to be turned upside down, and you won't want to miss a single moment of what happens next. Monday morning arrived with an autumn chill that seemed to seep into my bones as I stood in my small kitchen, watching frost cover the last of Mrs. Patterson's tomato plants in the garden next door. The DNA results sat unopened on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb, the manila envelope innocent-looking, yet containing the power to shatter our family's foundation. Marcus had already left for work, kissing my cheek goodbye as he had every morning for the past 23 years, completely unaware that his world might be crumbling around him. Sarah wasn't bringing Tommy until later. She'd called with another excuse about a doctor's appointment that sounded rehearsed and hollow. I was alone with the truth, whatever it might be, in the house that had witnessed every triumph and tragedy of our family's history. The morning light filtered through. The same windows where I'd watched Marcus leave for his first day of kindergarten, high school graduation, college. Now I was about to learn something that might change everything we thought we knew about our family. My hands shook as I poured coffee from the same pot I'd been using for 15 years, the ceramic handle worn smooth by countless mornings of routine and ritual. The kitchen felt smaller somehow, the familiar yellow walls and checkered linoleum floor seeming to close in around me as I contemplated the envelope. With trembling fingers, I tore it open, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet house. The technical language blurred before my eyes, complex genetic terminology and percentages that meant nothing until I found the crucial line buried in the middle of the page. Probability of paternity, 0%. Below it, in stark black and white, were more details explaining that Marcus shared no genetic markers with Tommy. The scientific certainty was brutal in its clarity. My worst fears were confirmed. Marcus was not Tommy's biological father. I sank into my kitchen chair, the same one where I'd fed Marcus breakfast before school for 18 years, where I'd helped him with homework and listened to stories about his day. The chair where I'd comforted him through heartbreaks and celebrated his victories. How could Sarah have done this to my son? How could she let him bond with a child who wasn't his while lying to his face every single day for 3 years? The memories came flooding back. Marcus's joy when Sarah announced her pregnancy, his meticulous preparation of the nursery, painting the walls pale green because they didn't know the baby's sex. He'd assembled the crib with the same careful attention he gave everything, reading the instructions 3 times and double-checking every screw. When Tommy was born, Marcus had cried, actual tears of pure happiness, as he held the tiny baby and whispered promises about being the best father he could be. The sound of the front door opening made me quickly hide the results under a stack of mail. My heart hammered against my ribs as I tried to compose myself, smoothing my hair and checking my reflection in the toaster's chrome surface. "Mrs. Johnson?" Sarah's voice called out, tentative and strained. "In here, dear," I managed, surprised by how steady my voice sounded, despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. She appeared in the doorway with Tommy, who looked adorable in his little blue jacket and dinosaur backpack. His face lit up when he saw me, and he immediately ran to hug my legs with the uninhibited affection only children possess. "Grandma Gloria, I missed you." His innocent smile broke my heart into a million pieces. This sweet boy, with his gap-toothed grin and endless curiosity about the world, had no idea his world was about to change forever. "Tommy, sweetheart, go play with your toys in the living room," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "Your truck and blocks are right where you left them on Saturday." Once Tommy's footsteps faded toward the living room, I placed the DNA results on the table between us, the papers seeming to cast a shadow over everything. Sarah's face went pale as winter, her green eyes widening with panic and recognition. She knew exactly what she was looking at. Mrs. Johnson, I can explain, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. Explain what, Sarah? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm, 43 years of protecting my son overwhelming my usual composure. Explain that you've been lying to my son for 3 years, that you've let him love and provide for a child who isn't his, that you've made him a father based on a lie? Tears streamed down her face, mascara leaving dark trails on her cheeks. Her hands shook as she reached for the chair across from me, needing its support to remain standing. You don't understand the whole story, Mrs. Johnson. You don't know what really happened. The pain in her voice gave me pause, cutting through my anger like a knife through butter. In 40 years of teaching, I'd learned to hear the difference between excuse-making and genuine distress. Something in Sarah's tone, in the way her whole body seemed to crumple, told me there was more to this story than a simple affair. Then tell me the whole story, Sarah. My son deserves the truth, and so do I said, fighting to keep my voice steady while Tommy's innocent laughter echoed from the living room where he was building something with his blocks, completely unaware that the adults in his life were navigating a minefield that could destroy his sense of security forever. Sarah collapsed into the chair across from me, her designer suit wrinkled and her usually perfect appearance disheveled in a way I'd never seen before. Her shoulders shook with sobs that seemed to come from the deepest part of her soul, and I found my anger beginning to mix with something else. Genuine concern for this young woman who'd become like a daughter to me over the past 6 years. It wasn't supposed to happen, she began, her voice breaking on every word. I was working late at Hartman, Richardson and Associates. You know how demanding that firm is. I'd been pulling 60-hour weeks trying to prove myself, trying to justify my position there. I was one of only 3 women associates, and the pressure was incredible. I leaned forward, my grandmother's instincts kicking in despite my anger. I'd raised Marcus alone, worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and I recognized the sound of someone drowning in circumstances beyond their control. My boss, Mr. Richardson, he's the senior partner, the one whose name is on the building downtown. He started asking me to stay late for special projects. At first, I was flattered. I thought it meant he saw potential in me, that I was being groomed for bigger things. I was struggling financially, trying to pay off law school debt while Marcus was still in graduate school. We were living on love and ramen noodles most nights. Her hands trembled as she wiped tears with the back of her sleeve. It started with dinner meetings that went too late, touches that lasted too long, comments about my appearance that made me uncomfortable. But he was powerful, Mrs. Johnson. He controlled my career, my future, my ability to pay my bills. When I tried to create boundaries, he'd remind me how easily replaceable I was. My heart began to sink as I realized where this story was heading. In my 40 years of teaching, I'd seen too many young women trapped in situations where power imbalances left them with impossible choices. The night it happened, I was working on a case that could have made my career. Richardson called me into his office around 9 p.m., said we needed to discuss strategy over dinner. I thought it was professional. Foolish, maybe, but I was so eager to succeed. He took me to that expensive steakhouse on Michigan Avenue, the one with the private dining rooms. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, and I had to strain to hear her over the sound of Tommy's toys in the next room. He ordered wine, lots of wine. I kept trying to steer the conversation back to work, but he kept making it personal. When I tried to leave, he said it would be career suicide, that I'd never work at another respectable firm in Chicago if I walked out on him. The pieces were falling into place, and my anger was transforming into something much more complex. Rage at a system that allowed powerful men to prey on vulnerable women. Heartbreak for Sarah's suffering, and fear for what this meant for our family. He forced himself on me in that private dining room, Mrs. Johnson. I was too scared to fight back effectively, too shocked to fully process what was happening. Afterward, he straightened his tie like nothing had happened and reminded me that nobody would believe me against him, that I'd invited it by accepting dinner, by wearing a dress, by being alone with him. I reached across the table without thinking, covering her hands with mine. This wasn't the betrayal I'd imagined. This was assault, pure and simple, perpetrated by someone who used his position to destroy innocent lives. "Why didn't you tell Marcus? Why didn't you report it?" I asked gently, though I suspected I already knew the answers. How could I tell Marcus? He was so proud of my career, so supportive of my ambitions. He bragged to everyone about his wife, the lawyer. And Richardson wasn't lying about his power. He had connections everywhere, friends in the district attorney's office, judges who owed him favors. I was nobody, a first-year associate with student loans and big dreams. She paused to compose herself, wiping her nose with a tissue I handed her from the box I always kept on the kitchen table. When I found out I was pregnant, I convinced myself it could be Marcus's. We were trying to have a baby after all. The timing was unclear. Richardson had made his threats very clear. If I ever told anyone what happened, he'd destroy both. Our careers. He'd make sure neither Marcus nor I ever worked in our fields again. The injustice of the situation hit me like a physical blow, making my chest tight with rage. This powerful man had assaulted my daughter-in-law and then used his position to silence her, forcing her to live with the consequences while he continued his privileged life unchallenged. When Tommy was born and looked different, I just prayed no one would notice, that love would be enough to make genetics irrelevant. Marcus was so happy, so proud to be a father. Watching them together, seeing how much joy Tommy brought him, I couldn't bear to destroy that. "Where is Richardson now?" I asked, my voice taking on a steel edge that surprised us both. Still senior partner at the firm, still destroying lives probably. He made partner the year after Tommy was born, partly based on the case we were working on that night. He got a promotion for destroying my life. Her voice was filled with bitter resignation, but I heard something else underneath, a spark of anger that had been suppressed for too long. I reached across the table and took both her hands in mine, looking directly into her green eyes. "Sarah, honey, we're going to make this right. Richardson thinks he's untouchable, but he's never faced a grandmother protecting her family. But first, Marcus needs to know the truth, all of it. If this story is hitting you as hard as it's hitting me, please subscribe and hit that like button. This family's journey toward justice is just beginning, and you won't want to miss how they handle this devastating revelation and fight back against a system designed to protect powerful predators." That evening felt like the longest of my life. I sat with Marcus and Sarah at our dining room table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of family meals, celebrated birthdays, and helped with homework. The DNA results lay between us like evidence in a courtroom, illuminating a truth that changed everything we thought we knew about our family. Tommy played upstairs in Marcus's old bedroom, his innocent laughter drifting down through the heating vents, oblivious to the storm brewing in the house that had always been his safe harbor. Marcus's face had gone through every emotion possible over the past hour. Shock that literally left him speechless for 10 minutes. Anger that made his hands shake, confusion that furrowed his brow in ways I hadn't seen since he was a troubled teenager, and now a hollow emptiness that scared me more than his rage had. He sat perfectly still, staring at his hands folded on the table, the same hands that had changed Tommy's diapers, taught him to throw a baseball, comforted him through nightmares. 3 years, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the old house's settling sounds. 3 years I've loved him, changed his diapers, walked the floor with him when he was sick with fever, taught him to walk, to say daddy, to ride his tricycle in our driveway. His voice cracked on the last word, and I watched my strong son, the man who'd survived his father's death, who'd worked his way through college and graduate school, who dedicated his life to helping at-risk youth find their way, break apart in front of me. "And you still can, baby," Sarah said through fresh tears, reaching across the table toward him. "You're the only father he's ever known. You're the one who gets up with him when he has bad dreams, who makes pancakes shaped like dinosaurs on Sunday mornings, who taught him that the monster under his bed is actually a friendly dragon who protects good little boys. The biology doesn't change that love, Marcus. It doesn't erase 3 years of being his daddy. Marcus looked up, his eyes filled with a pain so deep it seemed to echo through generations. But Richardson, that monster gets away with rape while I unknowingly raise his child? While I work overtime to pay for daycare and clothes and doctor's visits for the biological son of the man who destroyed my wife? Where's the justice in that, Mama? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that couldn't be extinguished. I leaned forward, drawing on every lesson life had taught me in 67 years on this earth, every piece of wisdom passed down from my grandmother who'd survived the Depression and my mother who'd lived through segregation and the civil rights movement. Son, sometimes justice doesn't come the way we expect it to. It doesn't always arrive in courtrooms or newspaper headlines. Sometimes it comes in the form of love triumphing over evil, family bonds proving stronger than biological ones, and good people refusing to let bad people win. But this family has never backed down from a fight, especially when it's about protecting the people we love. I thought about my own father, who'd worked double shifts at the steel mill to put food on our table, who'd faced discrimination and hatred but never let it harden his heart. I thought about my husband, who'd died serving his country but had taught Marcus that real strength comes from protecting those who can't protect themselves. Over the next 2 hours, fueled by coffee and righteous anger, we developed a plan that would have made my activist ancestors proud. Sarah would document everything she could remember about the assault: dates, times, witnesses who might have seen her distress afterward, any physical evidence that might still exist. I would use my connections from 40 years of teaching in this community to quietly investigate Richardson's history, to find other women he might have victimized over the years. Marcus would continue being Tommy's father while we built our case, because that's what love looked like, showing up every day regardless of circumstances. This won't be easy, I warned them, my voice taking on the tone I'd used when addressing parent-teacher conferences about difficult topics. Richardson has money, power, connections throughout this city. He'll fight dirty because men like him always do when their carefully constructed lives are threatened. He'll try to destroy your reputation, Sarah, and he'll come after Marcus's job at the community center. He'll use every weapon in his considerable arsenal. Sarah straightened in her chair, and for the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of the fierce young woman who'd graduated law school despite working 2 jobs to pay for it. Let him try. I'm not that scared girl anymore, Mrs. Johnson. I have a family to protect now, and I've learned that silence only protects the predators. Marcus reached across the table and took Sarah's hand, his large fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture of solidarity that made my heart swell with pride. I'm sorry you went through that alone. You should have told me sooner, baby. We could have faced it together from the beginning. I was protecting you, she whispered, her thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand. I was protecting our happiness, our family, our future. I thought if I could just keep the secret buried deep enough, we could have a normal life. We protect each other now, he said firmly, his voice gaining strength with each word. All of us. That includes Tommy. Biology or not, he's my son, and I'll be damned if I let Richardson's evil touch him. We're going to fight for justice, not just for us, but for every woman he's hurt over the years. The fight for justice was just beginning, but looking at my son and daughter-in-law holding hands across our old kitchen table, I knew our family was ready for war. We had something Richardson would never understand: the unbreakable bonds of chosen family and the power that comes from fighting for what's right. 6 months later, I stood outside the imposing Cook County Courthouse, its limestone columns, reaching toward a gray Chicago sky that perfectly matched my mood of determined satisfaction. The building had witnessed decades of justice served and denied, and today it was our turn to add our story to its history. Around me, reporters surrounded Richardson in handcuffs, their cameras flashing as federal marshals led him from the courthouse steps to a waiting vehicle. The sight was surreal. This man who had seemed untouchable, who had wielded power like a weapon against vulnerable women, now reduced to a defendant in an orange jumpsuit facing federal charges for multiple counts of sexual assault, racketeering, and witness intimidation. The fall from grace had been swift once the dominoes started falling. Our investigation had uncovered 5 other women with stories eerily similar to Sarah's. All young lawyers he'd exploited and silenced over a 15-year period. Each woman had been carefully selected for her vulnerability. Recent law school graduates with student debt, single mothers desperate for stable employment, immigrants who feared deportation if they lost their jobs. Richardson had been methodical in his predation, using the same expensive restaurant, the same private dining room, the same threats about career destruction. The breakthrough had come when Janet's investigation firm discovered that Richardson had been using firm funds to pay for these business dinners and later to pay private investigators to dig up dirt on his victims. Financial crimes carried federal penalties, which gave us the FBI's attention when local authorities had initially been reluctant to pursue a case against such a prominent citizen. Sarah emerged from the courthouse, her head held high for the first time in years, flanked by the team of prosecutors who'd fought tirelessly to ensure Richardson faced the full weight of justice. The settlement money from the firm's insurance company would secure Tommy's college education and provide therapy for all the survivors. But more importantly, Richardson would spend the next 12 to 15 years in federal prison where his money and connections couldn't protect him. The civil suit had been equally devastating to his empire. Hartman, Richardson, and Associates was dissolving, their client list scattered to other firms. Richardson's personal assets, the downtown penthouse, the Lake Michigan vacation home, the collection of luxury cars he'd loved more than human beings, were being liquidated to pay settlements to his victims and legal fees that had drained his considerable fortune. Marcus was waiting by our car, holding Tommy's hand as they watched the courthouse drama unfold. Our little boy had grown so much during these difficult months, now 4 years old, and full of questions about why Mommy and Daddy had been spending so much time with lawyers and why Grandma Gloria looked so angry whenever she watched the news. But his smile remained the same bright light that had illuminated our family from the beginning. His laughter still the sweetest sound in our house. The legal battle had only strengthened Marcus and Tommy's bond in ways that surprised everyone. Biology meant nothing compared to the love they shared, and Marcus had embraced his role as Tommy's father with even more determination once he understood the circumstances of Tommy's conception. He'd started taking Tommy to father-son events at the community center, teaching him to play chess on the same board where his grandfather had taught him decades ago. "Daddy, can we go to the park now?" Tommy asked, tugging on Marcus's sleeve with the impatience of childhood. He was wearing his favorite Chicago Bears jersey, the miniature version of the one Marcus wore every Sunday during football season. "Absolutely, buddy," Marcus replied, lifting him onto his shoulders with practiced ease. "How about we stop for ice cream on the way? I think we all deserve a celebration today." As we walked toward Lincoln Park, the same park where Marcus had played as a child, I reflected on how profoundly our family had been transformed by this ordeal. We'd faced our darkest moment and emerged not just stronger, but more united than ever before. Sarah had found her voice and courage, becoming an advocate for other assault survivors and working with law firms to implement better protections for young female attorneys. Marcus had learned that true fatherhood transcends genetics, that the daily acts of love and sacrifice matter more than DNA. And Tommy had gained something precious, a family that would fight heaven and earth to protect him. The autumn leaves crunched under our feet as we entered the playground near the lagoon, the same playground where Marcus had learned to swing as a toddler 30 years ago. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the scene as Tommy ran toward his favorite climbing structure, calling back to us with pure joy. "Come play with me, Daddy. Come push me on the swings, Grandma. Sarah, watch." Me go down the big slide. We followed him, our hearts full of hope and the particular kind of love that comes from surviving trauma together. Sometimes justice comes in courtrooms, with judges' gavels and jury verdicts. But it also comes in simpler forms, in the choice to love unconditionally, to stand together against evil, to refuse to let predators steal your joy or destroy your family bonds. Our family had learned that the strongest connections aren't always formed by blood. They're forged through loyalty, sacrifice, and the unwavering commitment to stand together against any storm. Richardson had tried to destroy us, but instead he'd made us unbreakable. We were living proof that love, justice, and family could triumph over the darkest evil, that ordinary people could topple systems of power when they refused to remain silent. As Tommy laughed on the swings, his small hands gripping the chains, while Marcus pushed him higher and higher toward the Chicago skyline, I knew our story would continue. Not as victims of someone else's cruelty, but as survivors who'd chosen to transform their pain into purpose, their trauma into triumph. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of family, justice, and the power of unconditional love. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more emotional stories that prove ordinary families can achieve extraordinary justice. Hit that like button and share your thoughts about family, courage, and standing up to powerful predators in the comments below. Your stories and support mean everything